Good morning. Good morning. Glad you're all joining us again. Set up here, sorry. Welcome back. As we wait for people, I would invite you to do a little thinking about this question that's up on your screen. And then just as a reminder again, we're going to be using the chat section a lot. And so fill that in. Hope you are all doing well. I don't know if you had any storms where you were at yesterday, but it was a little crazy up here in northern Indiana. So we're drying off and looking forward to a little nicer day. As people jump in, and we'll give a couple minutes here. Again, join in the chat with us. Would you rather have your fingers permanently covered with that Cheeto dust? You know what I'm talking about. Or would you rather have your teeth permanently covered with Oreo? I don't know what you would call it. Not dust, residue. Oreo residue. Throw your answer down in the chat message. Let others know what you would say. Rich, what are you leaning towards?
I just threw mine in the chat there. So, sometimes you just need a little pick-me-up throughout the day. So it could be quite gross. Oh.
Nice. Erica's going with the Cheetos. Nice, nice. Yeah, Oreo lasagna doesn't sound appetizing. I don't know that I could do that.
Well, you think about going out to get a coffee or something, and you want to buy that pastry, but if you got the Oreo teeth, you kind of have your sweet right with it. So it's like a convenience thing.
Save you money on your flavored coffees.
Exactly.
Just a quick heads up, if you have the tool that we've been utilizing for the last few trainings, if you have it handy or nearby, grab that. Brandy is going to maybe throw it in the link in the chat, Brandy. We'll do it now, and then we'll do it a little bit later as well. That is something that we will be working with in this session. It's going to look a little bit different today. So that's something you will need. So if it works better just to open it up on your screen or have it kind of ready to access that way, you can do that too. But we'll be using it in conjunction with this PowerPoint. So you'll want some access to it if you have it. If you don't have it right now, not critical. The other thing is, wherever you are, if you could grab some paper and a writing utensil, we will need that as we go throughout this session a couple points in time. So again, grab both those things and we will get started here in a second. You are all going to be muted, but we would also invite you or welcome you to unmute your video if you would like to join us here. Sometimes it can be a little awkward for us to just kind of have our faces hanging out here, and those are some fantastic names, but we would also love to see some faces that go with those names. Just as an introduction, we have Brandy here again, who will be answering any questions regarding issues that you're having or downloads or links. And we also like to welcome Aubrey. Aubrey's joining us today to kind of see the craziness that happens in what we do. Aubrey joined us just the other day on our team, and so you can give her a welcome. We have a few people here, and usually we have a few more, but for the sake of time, I think we're going to go ahead and get started, and this will be a core group for today, and for those who are still joining, we'll let them catch up as we go along. All right. So here's a quote that I invite you just to think about for yourself. I will let you read the person's name, and you can Google that if you want. I do not know the pronunciation, so I'm not even going to try. It says, teaching is not about answering questions, but about raising questions, opening doors for them in places that they could not imagine. So I think it's something that we can keep in the back of our minds as we continue to think about this idea of relationships and how relationships allow us to ask those questions and challenge and open those doors for youth in new ways. So today it's going to look a little different. We are going to quickly look at the opportunity to grow dimension. We've looked at the other three, but today we're just going to quickly hit on that fourth. And the reason for that is we are going to spend a little more intentional time actually seeing how we can notice these interactions happening. So we've spent the last 3 weeks talking about these Z moments of impact. Z moments of connection and reciprocity. And last week was about inclusion. And then we're going to get a brief taste of Z moments of opportunity to grow today. And then we're going to do the actual work of trying to see if we can notice these. And then we'll finish up with some final reflections, some final thoughts as we wrap up this part in this series. Again, reminder that I'm going to keep moving, but if you ever have any questions, throw them down in the chat area or thoughts, and we will definitely try to connect with that. So again, this is the tool. If you still need that link, or it should be in the chat, but if you don't see it, you can ask Brandy to resend that. This is the simple interactions tool we've been using as we look at a framework for how we view relationships. And just as a quick, brief reminder that connection is the interacting with mutually positive or appropriate emotions. And Z moments look as though an adult and a youth are mutually present and in tune. Doesn't mean that you're both happy, but that you're mutually connected. The second is reciprocity, and a Z moment of reciprocity is a two-way serve and return. So it's this back and forth, this engagement and interaction that is not just all adult-led, but actually is also student-led and youth-led. And then the third that we talked about last week is inclusion, the inviting and involving the least able, or the least likely or least able to engage. And Z moments are when youth feel invited and included. And just as a reminder, this doesn't mean that there's required participation. Participation is always an option for youth and children in terms of thinking through a developmental relationship. And then the fourth we're going to be looking at today is opportunity to grow. So real quickly, opportunity to grow is the presenting of incremental challenge and matching with appropriate support. So some of you may have engaged with this if you are in education specifically, or if you've taken classes in that realm. It's often referred to as scaffolding, and we'll see that terminology in a little bit. But in the educational world, they often talk about this idea as scaffolding, or giving incremental opportunities for engagement. And as a constant reminder, this is how we work with developing relationships to impact change in a wide variety of sectors. So for example, this may impact academic. So this may impact if you're helping kids think through their homework or think through schoolwork. But it can also apply to how we help youth grow emotionally or socially, and how they interact and how they engage with their emotions also fits within this scaffolding idea.
So Ben, I was with my 4-year-old granddaughter this last weekend, and she has a bike with training wheels, and there was a little bit of a upgrade to get to the road where we were going to go on a little bike ride. And I immediately grabbed her handlebars and was pulling her toward the road, and her words were, "No, Grandpa, let me do this." She needed to show me that she could put the muscle in and she could get up, go up that grade to get to the road. So to me, that was one of those points where I provided too much scaffolding for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a fantastic reminder. I think some of that is just built in naturally. I mean, we're not doing it to be, I don't think you were doing it to be a jerk or to be like demeaning.
I try to be a super grandpa, but it actually wasn't the best thing at that moment to do. So,
And I think part of this lines up with what we view in terms of working with youth and children. Oftentimes to do this work, we try to be compassionate and caring. And part of that maybe is a little oversensitivity or fear from our end of, well, what will happen if she falls on the way up, or if she can't do it? I got to make sure I help her. I think that's part of just, we talked about being a human and having some of those natural responses. So fantastic. Thanks for that introduction story there, Rich, because it really lines up with how we view these different moments. So X moments, again, we're going to fly through this real quickly, is when we make our expectations either unrealistic or undemanding. Both have the same exact result, and it just creates an opportunity that doesn't give them any challenge or growth, or makes something seem so unattainable that it removes their interest or will to try it. A Y moment is a shift from when we shift to making something unattainable. So if you see on that first slide, that top, that unrealistic, we still have that real, or that expectation that here is where we want you to end up. We want you to end up at this top level. But we understand that in order to get there, we need to create this, what Rich talked about, this scaffolding. And so this scaffolding just creates that incremental change and movement we talk about bite-sized pieces. These bite-sized, nuggetized pieces to say, okay, I expect that you should be doing this level of math. However, going from addition to advanced algebraic computations overnight is unrealistic. So we need to think of what are all the small steps that need to be put into place to help you move from one space to the next. So those are X and Y moments. And that brings us to Z moments. And Z moments are where we do that same level of scaffolding. We have that same direction. And what we add in for Z moments is what's called fading. And it's this idea that we find opportunities or small chunks where we can create this fading and take away some of their stepping stones to say, you know what? Let's see what you can do on your own, what you can create. So as you look at this visual, take a couple seconds to look at it. What do you notice in this image? I want you to kind of write a few things down in the chat. What do you see about this image that either catches your attention or you have a question about? What jumps out at you? Anything at all? What do you notice happening in this image? Yeah, so Erica talking about how knowing someone is there to help you. And as you look at that, Erica, because I totally agree with that, what about this image allows for that? What do you see in this image that gives that impression that we know someone is there to help you? Absolutely. That focus and that attention is still there. I think what's interesting to me is, so if you see this image, I'm going to jump back on you here a second and go to this first image. In this first image, I get this feeling of, here's this adult looking down on this child and saying, you need to get up here. You need to make it here. Whereas in this last image, this, like you said, this adult is kind of looking up in a supportive way of saying, you know what? If you fall, if you stumble, if you trip, I'm here. I'm here to help out. And I love that the adult is still holding the pieces, not in a way of like, haha, I'm tricking you or I'm pulling the rug out from under you, but it's like, I still have this. And if we can't make this leap on our own, you know what? I have it that I can put back in. We have it close by. Rich talking about that biking. I remember that it took us a long time to get rid of our training wheels. Not necessarily because we just didn't take them to Goodwill or something, but we wanted them there in case we felt like, okay, you know what? We need to give these training wheels back for a little bit. So you still have that scaffolding opportunity. It's not gone. It doesn't become something that, nope, you can't go further until you make this leap. But you're still there in a supportive role. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we move on?
I think for me, Ben, like with my granddaughter, one of the reasons I tried to reach in and help and be preemptive was she actually she leans all the way to the one side with her training wheels. So I thought she's going to biff and fall over. But that was my perception. It's like she had it. She was good to go. So sometimes we have assumptions about where kids are at, and that could be hard to let go and pull back on the scaffolding sometimes because of our own perceptions of where they are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we don't even always know what they can or can't do, right? Like you said, we have those expectations. But until we allow for mistakes to be made, or for a fail to happen, or for a struggle to even happen, until we create space for that, we don't really know what they can or can't do. Which also then may speak to, we may be making things too easy for them that don't need to be too easy, but it's just our expectation of, well, this is probably something you can't handle on your own. Yeah, I think, well, I have a couple more thoughts on it, but I'll do this quote first by Paul Tuff. If you haven't had the chance to look at this book or read this book, I greatly encourage it. Rich or Brandy or Aubrey, the website for this, I did not copy it to post here, but if one of you would be open to kind of finding that website. So on his website, he has this book, and it's available to read online or to download as a PDF. You can also get a book copy. I don't think I have another version, but it's a great book. It has a lot of stories and a lot of quick read sections on just thinking through how do we help children. And a lot of his focus too is on children who really are the least likely or least able to grow and develop. But his quote real quickly was, meeting and overcoming meaningful, he's specifically talking about academic, but challenges is critical to developing positive academic mindsets. Like, I can succeed at this, or my ability and competence grow with my effort. Now, these aren't quotes that kids are actually probably going to say, but he's talking about that mindset of when children enter or get to a challenge, an obstacle in life, what is going to be going through their mind? And the more we've given them the opportunity to experience overcoming challenges, the more they'll start to realize that it's something that they can take on for themselves. So as we think about doing this and creating ways of helping youth grow and develop, there's a couple things that I think are important. And the first is that we assess the individual needs. And this is probably one of the more difficult things in terms of this dimension specifically, because probably as you think about the number of kids that you will see on a daily basis, that's a very large number. Unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe, each kid is going to be at a very different point on this scaffolding and on this journey. So where one kid may be very advanced in how they control their emotions or how they deal with issues of anger, another child may not be. So to create the same scaffolding for everyone doesn't make sense. It almost creates more of that X. When we create a specific curriculum that we just apply to everybody, more often than not, most of the kids will either end up with it being way too easy or with it being way too difficult. There's no middle ground. So it has to be this individual processing of what does this child need in this situation. As a quick example, you may have different expectations of appropriate language. So it doesn't mean that you let some kids just come in and cuss up a storm, but maybe there's a kid who their first day, that's all they did was cuss and really rail into other kids and rail into the adults. And maybe about halfway through, you start noticing that they've stopped cussing as much. They still cuss, but maybe you go up to that kid and say, you know what I really appreciate? You've really figured out a way to express your anger a lot better. Thanks for cussing less. Where there's another kid who never cusses, but all of a sudden, out of the blue, they drop one cuss word. You may have to go and challenge them for that one cuss word. It doesn't mean that they're worse than the other kid, but you have different expectations. And so when youth meet these different expectations at different levels, you need to challenge them and support them differently. Does that make sense? Rich, does that make sense to that?
So we have a really good friend who runs, he was an 8th grade physics teacher for years and years. And last time I talked to him, he said something that radically changed his teaching was he would do some assessments of kids where they're at when they came into the classroom. And it transformed his teaching because he recognized the kids are at different levels. He said it made the job harder, and yet it made it much more rewarding because he actually saw more growth when he saw kids as individuals. And he was one of the rock star physics teachers in the Elkhart school system. And he said it was a moment of transformation for him.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It is. There is nothing. This program, this framework is called Simple Interactions, but in reality, there's nothing simple in putting this into practice. It's actually very difficult and can be time consuming and overwhelming. But the value that comes out of being intentional about this can be very dramatic.
Yeah, it's cool because you want to be effective as a youth worker. So, when you have those moments of where it like clicks and it's effective, like that's the good stuff. That's what we're striving for. So,
all right. So next is being quick with questions rather than answers. And this kind of goes to the quote earlier, but really thinking about scaffolding and what we want to teach these children or youth. So again, whether that's something academic or if it's something social or emotional in terms of like how to regulate emotions. The more we can be quick with questions rather than answers, the more it forces or challenges them to think through and create their own answers. So if they can understand for themselves, you know what, this is why it's valuable or important for me to get better at controlling my anger, then it moves away from, well, Bobby or Susie taught me that I have to control my anger. But I don't really like Bobby or Susie, so why would I listen to them? So the more we can help them question and think through the needs that they have, the more that development will stick. And finally, and this is a big one for us and the trainings that we do, this idea of creating space for failure and support. For us, we've talked about the acronym of FAIL, meaning first attempt in learning, FAIL. So it doesn't mean that it's the end of the road. It actually just means you've created an opportunity to learn something new. So what doesn't work, or what should I do differently? So the more we can create, and I'm going to go back to the framework here, when we create this fading, it actually gives them opportunity to fail. And while that may sound terrible, and you probably don't want to use that wording as what you tell the kids, like, oh, hey, I'm just giving you a chance to fail here. I probably wouldn't tell that to them, But what you're doing is you're giving them a chance to try something like Rich did with his granddaughter on the bike. And if she falls over, if she fails, then you can come back to the drawing board and say, hey, would you like me to help you? Or what would be helpful for you to get up this hill? So that she can then say, you know what, this didn't work. Can you grab onto my handlebars? Or can you just give me an initial push? Might all be opportunities that you say, oh, I didn't think about that. So giving those chances to fail, but again, and I think this is kind of what Erica was leaning into, was still being there to offer that support. All right, that was quick. It still took half our time. Do you have any questions on opportunity to grow, or things that you still need clarity on, or things that are uncertain? Okay, so we're going to keep moving on. And like I said, this is where we start to shift to trying to put this into application a little bit. So what you will need is your paper, something to jot notes, write down some ideas. And what we're going to do is we're going to practice our noticing. So yeah, Erica, fantastic thought. This idea of stressing trial and error. Whenever we try something for the first time, you're right. Like there's going to take that learning curve, that time, that growth. Thanks for that. That's a fantastic thought. All right, so we're going to notice. I have a couple of video clips. We'll see if we can get through both. And we're going to watch these clips 2 times. And what I did on the side there, hopefully you can see them. Or if you have your tool, you can have it with you in front of you. We're going to be noticing Z moments. So as you watch this video, how do you notice these Z moments happening? So where do you see Z moments of connection, where there's a mutual in-tuneness emotionally or socially? How do you see Z moments of reciprocity, where there's some sort of back and forth? How do you see Z moments of inclusion, where youth are invited and included? And how do you see Z moments of scaffolding and fading? So I'll play the video through and then be thinking about things or noticing things. We'll play it again, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we saw. Give a second here. Hopefully you have something. You can also just mentally remember it, but I find it's valuable to just jot down a few thoughts. All right.
Jason, let's go see your room.
What do you think? We kept it a little spare, so you can decorate it how you like.
Dinner! Go?
Excellent. Soccer is fun. Yeah, I saw you guys out there. We're the family.
Yeah!
Oh, I thought you were on my team.
All right, so we'll watch it one more time, see if anything new jumps out to you, or maybe even just continue to look for the things that you already started to notice.
Jason, let's go see your room.
What do you think? We kept it a little spare, so you can decorate it how you like.
Dinner! Go?
Excellent. Soccer is fun. Yeah, I saw you guys out there. I thought you were on my team.
All right. What I think we're going to do is you kind of finish up jotting down your thoughts. I would love for us to actually engage with this a little bit and talk a little bit. So Brandy is going to give you the option to unmute yourself at this point in time. And I'd love for you to join in the conversation. And if you're open to unmuting, is there a word for the video? Unhiding your video, unmuting your video.
Revealing yourself.
Revealing yourself. Maybe. We'll workshop that a little bit, Rich. That may take a little more work.
Okay.
But I would invite you to join us and maybe even go to, I'm not going to change the slide PowerPoint, but if you're welcome to go to like a gallery view or some way that we can kind of see other people. What I would like us to do is just kind of share with each other, what are the things that we noticed? What are the things that you saw? What are the things that maybe you heard? What did you notice? And frame it in terms of the terms that we've been talking about: connection, reciprocity, inclusion, and opportunity to grow. If you don't remember them, that's fine. But go ahead and whenever you want, if we talk over each other, we'll just kind of repeat what we were saying. But whenever you have something to share, what did you see? What did you notice in that video?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the first thing I noticed, it almost seems like he feels overwhelmed, not sure how to fit in, kind of in a little bit of shock. Then you notice the bedroom. He is starting to maybe feel a little accepted, and again, a little surprised that he now has this space of his own. And then over time, just being included in the various family activities, like getting the ice cream cones and playing the football. And then when he walks in and sees the family photo, because that's the first thing he notices, he walks in, he sees the family photo, and it's just the photo of the family. And then when he walks in and he sees the photo that he's in with the rest of the family, like, you can just almost feel the love that he has in seeing that. And then of course he walks in and he hugs his foster mom, and you know right then he feels included and he's part of the family, and he feels like he's totally accepted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Erica. Kind of that shifting, that it was a process. That inclusion was a process that happened over time. Yeah, that's interesting. Other thoughts? What did other people notice?
Ben, I can just do a quick piggyback on what Erica shared, that his softening or starting to move in the direction of connection. So the dad said about the bedroom, hey, we kept it simple so you could have, decorate it the way that you want to. Maybe it's a stretch, but it seemed like that statement is kind of inviting reciprocity, that, it's like they could have just went ahead and decorated it like crazy, but leaving space and room for him to respond or put his own personal touch on it seemed like a opportunity for reciprocity there.
Absolutely. Thanks. Yeah, those small windows, those small opportunities for youth to express themselves can all make an impact. Other thoughts? I've showed this video numerous times, and maybe it was just kind of what you were talking about, Erica, that kind of sparked it for me. But thinking about that picture change, I don't know about for the rest of you. Maybe some of you do this more often than not. We don't actually change our pictures a lot in our house. We kind of put up, like maybe after a couple years when we look at a picture of our family and we're like, wow, that's a really old picture, we'll change it. But even small pictures have sat on counters or for a long time. And what I never noticed before is they clearly didn't make this a big scene or a big change. They didn't call the whole family down to say, hey, look, we're changing our little picture to include you. It was something subtle and something that they felt like, you know what? This is clearly a picture of or a wall of our family, and we see him as a part of our family, so we're just going to change it. And then it was up to him, or it allowed him to kind of notice that. So kind of thinking about another piece of reciprocity of to be able to respond how he felt comfortable responding to that picture. Rather than saying, you know what, we're all going to look at this and you should respond as though you're appreciative because we're all waiting for you to respond that way. They did it subtly, not saying that it would ever be bad to do it as kind of a group thing, but it just kind of stuck. It was interesting to me. It was like, oh, he had to notice that on his own, good or bad, but it gave him a chance to respond with how he most authentically felt about seeing it.
Yeah, and Ben, I think that picks up on what Noah is saying in the chat, that the family members gave him the space. They were there for him, but they gave him the space to respond. I think that really goes along with what you're saying.
Yeah. No, thanks for seeing that. I hadn't caught that chat yet, so thanks for sharing that, Noah.
And when anyone else seen that video, like when they got to the picture part, did they kind of get like chills, got a little teary eyed? Because I know I did when I watched it, because it was just like, oh, that is just so amazing. So that was just me, but I was wondering if anybody else kind of had that reaction when they watched it.
Yes, and even watching it a second time or multiple times, it doesn't get any better because you know it's actually coming. So like the first time, it's, oh, that caught me off guard. I didn't expect that. The second time, it's by about halfway, it's like, oh, I know what's coming. I know.
Yeah, you already know. You're just like, oh, this is gonna end so happy.
Yeah. No, I think it's I think it's a very interesting video that I've seen that is a reminder too that these are small things. Getting ice cream cones, even how everything from family dinner to soccer games wasn't like, hey, we play soccer in this family. Get on in here. Join us. You got to be a part of this. It was, you know what? This is what we do as a family. I'm sure he was always invited or welcome to join, but he was also able to sit on the sidelines. It's those little things, those little interactions, even interactions that happen in 15, 30 seconds, can all create these powerful moments of building relationship.
So maybe I'm over analyzing. I mean, the simple interactions you notice, like these small intentional moments, but I don't know if you guys noticed, like when the mom invited him into dinner, it wasn't what she said. It was like her little head nod, looking at him and like giving that little head nod, like, hey, we want you to be a part, come in for dinner. It wasn't like, get your butt in here for dinner. It was like that little head nod she gave was like, and I want you to come to the table. I want you to be a part of this. So you just say, like, it's the small little things that really make a difference emotionally as well.
Yep. No, that's great. I think that's really important to notice, is that sometimes it's things we say, but like you said, sometimes it's our body movement, our body gestures, even, especially maybe even for those ideas of inclusion, is physically changing your body position so that your line of sight includes somebody who's sitting in a corner or even standing a couple feet back, can make a big impact for them feeling like they're invited into the conversation. Absolutely. All right, let's do some more. We're doing well. Let's do one more video here. And,
Jason.
and a little context on this one. It may be a little choppier, sorry, just kind of the way I got it. So we'll see what we can pull from it. This one is actually from the Simple Organizations set or framework, from work that they've done in an orphanage. So if you speak Chinese, you may pick up on some things. If you don't, that's fine, because like what Rich just talked about is that it's not always the words. So we'll see what we can notice in other ways. Again, what are we noticing about connection, reciprocity, inclusion, and opportunity to grow? I'll have a few more comments afterwards, or some context afterwards, but just to set it up, this is a video from a Chinese orphanage where they did some work.
跪下来了。
All right, let's watch that one more time. We might watch it a couple because it's pretty short. So what do you notice? Where are you seeing these things? Oops. Maybe one more time. Let me look for another dimension that you haven't noticed yet. So as you do some thinking about that video, what did you notice? What did you notice about any of the dimensions we've talked about so far? And yeah, we'd love to hear your voice, but if it works better to jot notes in the chat section, definitely do that as well.
I would say the first thing I noticed was, of course, they're laughing, they're having fun. So there's definitely inclusion. She also understands each child's developmental abilities. So they can take something as simple as just, I think that might be a flower he has, or maybe a tissue paper flower, but just, you know, he's holding it and they're all just playing the game with them. And she's holding the little girl in the lap, you know, helping her participate as well. And so it's just really, it's very, like, even though it's in Chinese, you definitely understand like what's going on. They're just taking something very simple, sitting on the floor, having a fun little game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. So one of the context things is that for this orphanage, for this specific orphanage, it's so small, and actually their staffing is smaller. So they put all the kids together. So actually that girl is, I think she's much older than what she seems. I want to say even like 10 to 12, but she's just so delayed, or developmentally delayed and physically delayed, that she's just at a very different point. But all these kids are together, and like you said, and like you noticed, they're all engaging in different ways to their own abilities, and they're all included in that activity. Yep, absolutely. So yeah, I see that as opportunity to grow. Maybe you saw that as something different, but giving them some different ways to participate that they may not have always done. Yeah, thanks. Other thoughts?
I like the physical reciprocity you see in this video, like her leaning forward and just that physical movement toward and back. And there's like mirroring the movement and even the facial expression. There's a lot of nonverbal reciprocity going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Even having the one boy hold, so it's actually just a chunk of tissue that happened to, this video was part of, so when they go in and record these videos, they just do nonstop recording. So they don't set up the place, they don't set up the stage, they don't set up the props. They just walk around and record. And so this had been a part of a longer interaction, and somehow the tissue had gotten connected to the pen or whatever, and this was their response. But even letting him hold it, and rather than the teacher holding it and saying, now you blow, now you blow, now you blow, she let the child kind of choose who it went to or how they interacted with it. Yep.
Yeah, a cool thing with this, Ben, I think part of this is just for all you guys recognizing these moments are, whether you tape them or not, they're happening all the time in your Boys and Girls Clubs. Mm-hmm. Like in and out every day in the programs. These are moments that are happening. So.
Yes, with that and kind of watching our time, what a fantastic transition. I would say it's almost like you knew the PowerPoint, but I don't know that you knew the next part. So our third round of noticing, which again, we don't have a ton of time for, but I would invite you to think about either experiences you've directly had at Boys and Girls Clubs, or if you haven't had a lot of chance to be in them or engage directly with youth at this point, think about possibilities. What could we see? What could happen? So see if you can come up, and I still have the 4 Z moments on the side. Can you come up with examples that you have seen or things that you believe could happen or could be Z moments of opportunity to grow or inclusion or reciprocity or connection? Take a couple minutes, 90 seconds to do some thinking. See if you can jot down at least one for one of these dimensions. And again, remembering Rich's encouragement to think of these even as small moments and small interactions. It could be bigger, that's fine too, but what do you notice? What have you noticed? What could be possible? When you have something, we can still constantly be thinking about these, but if you have something or if you come up with one and be willing to share it, we would love to hear those.
Ben, when you were explaining this slide, my internet connection got a little unstable, so you kind of froze up and I couldn't understand what you were saying.
Sure. So for this, you're saying for this slide?
Yes.
Yep. So what I'd love for you to think about is where can you notice or where have you noticed some of these Z moments happening in clubs, or if you haven't had a lot of time to spend in clubs, where could these Z moments happen in Boys and Girls Clubs?
Okay.
So yeah, staff person stopping in the hall and getting down on the level of a child to listen and respond to their request. Getting that eye-to-eye level. Absolutely. That idea of, I think that ties in some connection, but it also ties in some reciprocity so that they feel like when they're giving you or talking back, you're at the same level with them. Mm-hmm. Other thoughts, other ways that you've noticed this?
It could be something as simple as sitting down with a child and playing a game like Mancala or bumper pool or air hockey. And it may not be something they're very good at, but they love and they want to learn it. So, every day, maybe you just take, 15, 20 minutes while you're still kind of watching your area, and you make it a point to work with this kid every day to help him learn these things that he wants to learn. And the same with, you could do it anywhere in the club with any age group who wanted to learn something, but just being there, being able to teach, taking the time out, noticing what someone is really interested in, but they might not be so good at and just need a little help, or they might not know, but they want to know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. I like that.
That's great, Eric. And sometimes you can be surprised. I did that with pool one time, and I got my butt kicked by this young man. I assumed I was his teacher, and he schooled me. So you never know.
Yeah. I have had that happen many a times. I also used to hold Just Dance tournaments on the Wii, and I thought I'm really good at this, and no, the kids would really embarrass me.
Mm-hmm. I think too with that, and I'll get to your comment here in a second, Noah, but with that, when you find a kid who has a skill or ability in something, thinking through taking it that next reciprocity step and saying, you should really host this tournament, or you should teach other kids how to play pool, or you should put on a dance revolution or Just Dance competition, and give them the ownership to take charge, because then it builds into that competency.
Oh, and I actually did. I have this video, and I had to stand on my desk to get a shot of there's probably about 15 kids all participating, doing the same dance. And then, you've got the kids that are all sitting around. So I would say maybe about 30 kids total in this video shot of all of them just doing the same dance. And it was so wonderful to get all these kids together, even if they couldn't quite do it or they were really good at it, just doing it together. And these were kids that normally might not get together in any other area of the club. But if we were doing that in the teen center, then they all wanted to come together. So it also helped build friendships where they normally might not have had that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And Noah, I think that's a fantastic idea of thinking through when games or cards are being played. How do we coax or guide or invite kids to be a part of it who are observing and watching? And I think sometimes it's a reminder, at least when I've been invited into playing activities or games that kids are doing, when they say, you know what, it's okay if you don't fully know, you'll pick it up pretty quickly. Like helping them understand that you don't need to be a pro at this card game to be a part of it. I think finding those little ways that we guide invitation is important. So thanks. Well, we need to keep moving, but I encourage you to notice these things. Notice them in the work that you do, but I would also encourage you to notice them in the work that other adults are doing. So for example, if you notice an adult doing a really fantastic job of a Z moment of reciprocity, one of your peers or somebody who's a supervisor or another person in the club, just letting them know, hey, I noticed you did this, and I had never really thought about doing that. So like things were said of, I noticed how you invited that kid to play the card game. I had never really thought about that. Thanks for doing that. And I'm going to try to do that as well. Noticing these moments of interaction is important for us to remember and maybe realize that you are having an incredible impact. You are making a difference in these kids' lives. And although it may feel short and it may feel like a small piece in what may be a very long day, it matters. These small interactions, these simple interactions are extremely important for youth development. So to finish our time, and we are about at our time, it has gone quick. This series has gone quick. But I would love for you, as you read these 4 dimensions, there are 4 beginning statements. And you can write something about all 4. You can write something about just one. I want you to just spend about 90 seconds, because our time's about up. And I want you to think with developmental relationships, or keeping relationships important in the back of your mind as you build these relationships with youth. How might you finish one or all of these statements in terms of yourself or in terms of your work? So go ahead and think a little bit about writing and ending to these statements. And as you continue to do some thinking and thinking about what you might write, I would invite us for the last minute here, 90 seconds, to go ahead. If you are open to, again, sharing your video, that'd be great. Going to gallery view and just read out one of your sentences. What did you finish? What did you say? And share it over the music. And if we overlap, just kind of repeat yourself. If this was our anthem in regards to relationships, what would it be? I believe that change is possible.
I hope my youth work makes all kids feel included.
Noah writes, I am going to guide and teach kids how to become impactful young adults. And Jessica writes, I am confident that AmeriCorps can change the world.
Or at least amazing youth workers like you all.
So thanks again for your time. We are all up. It went fast. It went quick. Again, as a reminder, you are always welcome. Kind of get a website here. To head to our website to contact us or email us with any other questions or things that you need clarified on in terms of developmental relationships. Thanks for being a part of these last 4. And we are at our time. Again, as a quick reminder before you leave, We do have evals for each one of these sessions. So if you need to go back and rewatch a session real quickly to fill out the evaluation, we'll have another one for this one. We'll also have an evaluation for kind of the 4 dimensions or the whole series that we talked about. And again, a reminder, for every response you turn in, it enters you in to win a prize. So we're going to be giving away I think a Starbucks gift card, and as well as a deck of U-Lead cards. So please remember to fill those out. Numbers are really low right now, so your chances are huge. So go ahead and jump on and do that, and we will talk to you soon.